Hey,
What's up,
hey.
everybody? Welcome to With All Due Respect. I'm Marcus Flowers, and that's our good friend Madeline Summerville.
Hey,
Maddie, how you
guys.
doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm back in Atlanta. So sad but
Georgia.
happy. You're always sad. It's a blessed place to be in when you are sad to leave and happy to come back.
I mean, come on. If I could be anywhere, I'd probably be in Italy right now as well.
I mean,
Just
I told people if they
good.
brought my beagles and my cat,
That's,
I would not leave.
mm,
Mom could come in for holidays and stuff. Be fine.
hey, I don't blame you. I spent a lot of time in Italy while I was overseas,
You
and
did?
I kind of miss those authentic pizza margaritas that they have there. Did you by
Tell me about
chance
it.
have any pizza margarita while you were there? Tell me yes. Tell me
We
yes.
had we had so much pizza. There was this place that I won't curse on here, but it was called Amazing Effing Pizza.
Mm,
And it was so good. And then we went to this other place that had fried pizza, and I'd never had it in my life, and it was extraordinary. And there was this one restaurant that we went back to 3 times because it's like, well, what if the next restaurant isn't as good? I don't think it gets
exactly.
any better than this, you know?
I mean, I'm a creature of habit as well. Once I find a good thing, I usually
Yep.
tend to stick with it. So
I mean, we'd been before, we had been there for a while, and so we were like, no, I'm just gonna keep going to this place. It's great.
that was how I was when I lived in Germany. I had an apartment that kind of set above a place, and there was an Italian restaurant downstairs. I tell
Oh,
you, every night after work, I would go in there. Those people became like my family, and they
that's my
expected to see me
dream. Did
every
you
day.
you get
So
your own Nona?
I mean, all of it, all of it. I mean, these what's Marco? I can't remember their last names, but the owner, his name was Marco, and he was a
Oh,
really, really good guy. And his wife and daughter would be back in the kitchen making stuff, and you know,
that's so
it's
sweet.
probably like it was one of those like local neighborhood restaurants where you have the
Yes.
same people coming in every day. So
Those are
you
the
get
best. Like
it's our
one time when we first visited, we went to Rome for our honeymoon and we stayed at this hotel and it was raining one night. We asked the concierge like, where should we go for dinner? And he said, well, you can go to this really trendy spot. They've been here for like 5 years and they got written up by all these places, blah, blah. Or you can go to this one place where the lady who makes the pasta there is 92 years old and she's been making it there for the last 55 years. And I was like, that place.
that's the person. That's the person you want making your pasta
That one. That's the one
almost
I want.
scratch every day. All right, everybody. Look, this is a show where we cut through the noise, call out the nonsense, and actually talk about what's happening. Not the version you get in the press releases, and definitely not the version you get from people who think that yelling is a substitute for leadership.
Because it's
Every
not.
week, we bring you real conversations with real people who are in the fight, candidates, organizers, experts, folks who aren't just talking about changes, but they're out there actively trying to make it happen. And then we break down the headlines because let's be honest about it. The news cycle right now, it is a lot. War, politics, culture, it's all colliding, and somebody's got to make sense of it. So, whether or not you're here to stay informed, get fired up, or just hear somebody say what you've been thinking all week, you're in the right place. So, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Maddie, today we got a pretty good guest on today.
Mm-hmm.
We've
He
got
knows his stuff.
we talk about a lot of times we just do where people have guests who are running for Congress or state houses, but we've got a big time guy running today
Mm-hmm.
for AG here in Georgia. We've got
Mm-hmm.
a good friend Bob Trammell joining us today on the show. So
What's
Bob,
up, Bob? Hey.
how you doing?
Hey, how are y'all?
We're good. We're good. How are you today?
Well, we're doing great, other than the fact that our voting rights are on fire and under assault here in
Yes.
Georgia and our country. But
Yes.
we're fighting to make sure that we protect them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this administration, I tell you, they finally did it, and they've been after this Voting Rights Act, Section 2
Oh
specifically for
yeah.
I want to say 30 or 40 years at least, if not 50. So as long as I've been around, they've been after that. But before we get into all of that, and we're definitely going to get into that, Bob, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from? What are your experiences? What shaped who you are today?
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to be with you. I'm Bob Trammell, and I'm running for Attorney General of Georgia. And I am from the one traffic light town of Luthersville, Georgia. It's a town of about 800 people that's in Meriwether County. That's about 15 miles south of Newnan and
Yep.
about 25 miles east of LaGrange.
Okay.
And I've spent most of my life there. It's where my wife Jenny and I are raising our 3 children, ages 13, 11, and 8. And I have practiced law there for the last 23 years. After I started my legal career as a law clerk and practiced a large firm in Atlanta for 2 years, I moved home because I wanted to represent people and help people in the biggest legal problems of their lives. And so that's what I've been doing there professionally for the last 23 years. And along the way, I had the opportunity to serve in the State House of Representatives here in Georgia for 6 years, almost 4 of those years as Democratic leader, where we fought for democratic ideals and values every single day, including protecting the voting rights of Georgians, and fought against Republican efforts to enact policies to suppress the vote here in Georgia. And I have to tell you, with all the chaos of what's going on with voting rights at the moment in our country and in our state, it just feels like voter suppression on steroids on steroids.
Yeah.
It's the cause of the day. I need people to really wake up and see what's happening, because this has been on the back burner for people. And it's the apathy for me that, we've been talking about this. I know you have, Bob, and thank you for everything you did at the State House. And, that fight, Republicans have been in charge there for what, 22 years now?
Long.
Just about. So I know you've had some fights on your hand at the Gold Dome, but
one thing I want to say, and I know we'll get into this, but there was a guardrail. The Voting Rights Act, I served after one of the most important guardrails had already been removed by the Roberts Court, which was Section 5 preclearance. We lost that over a decade ago, in 2013, I think. And so you used to have to submit changes on any aspect of the elections process, maps, moving a polling location, even a local referendum to enact a SPLOST. All that had to get pre-clearance from the Justice Department. And so after the Shelby case, all that went away. But we still had the important guardrail of Section 2 under the Voting Rights Act. So there was a limit about how crazy they could get.
Yeah.
And now with the Calais decision, all the limits are gone. And so that's what you're seeing. That's why it feels so chaotic. And that's why across the South, you see just this absolute insanity and rush to redraw maps and dilute, Black voting representation and participation specifically.
And make no mistake about it, no matter what they say, that is what it's about, Bob. That is what it's about. And, that leads me into this next question. I think I already know the answer before I ask it. What about this moment or experience made you decide that right now was the time for you to run for Attorney General of Georgia?
Yeah, so this moment is simply about, watching after the Trump came back in for the second time, and, the just relentless attacks on democratic institutions, suing law firms, watching big law firms roll over, taking universities and trying to pressure and strong arm them. And even the press itself, taking on the press and attacking them in ways that are unprecedented for commander-in-chief, and using the executive branch that way, and watching these institutions so too many times roll over. And so, we've just got to fight back and push back. And 2026 was simply an election that I never wanted to look back on this and have my kids ask me one day, what were you doing in this moment when the country was literally on fire? And that's why I'm running.
And that's I love the way you put that, because one of the things I always say to people is, and a lot of people don't like this when I say it, I say, if you ever wondered what you would have done in Germany in the 1930s, 1920s, you're doing it right now. You're doing it right now, because we're facing some of those same challenges. And, again, I see apathy across the board, and I hope people are starting to wake up, especially with, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act being
Yeah.
gutted right now.
I think a lot of it, because my contribution is to the media aspect of it. A lot of it is about the framing and how the issues are being presented to people. So, like, if you're talking about what you would do in the 1930s if you were in Germany, that's what you're doing now. Like, let's frame it this way. So, if you're somebody who doesn't have one of your loved ones who is currently in detention, right, where 1 out of 10 people who is currently in detention actually is just waiting on a court hearing and isn't here illegally and didn't get any notice that they were going to jail, right, which is something that you absolutely would be able to deal with as Attorney General dealing with those kinds of cases, right, then you're removed. You're removed enough from it to where you could liken that to somebody who isn't Jewish or who isn't in a minority who lived in Germany at the time, right? You're so removed from it, but there's all this chaos that's going on around you. And now, because we have the media, we know what's going on in other places, unlike they did then. So you really have more access and opportunity to do something about it than ever, even though it probably feels more chaotic than ever. But I love
Bingo, when they came for this group, I
yes,
said
yeah,
nothing. When they came for that group, I said nothing until they came for
me, and that's the whole thing.
That's it.
Um,
Kicking that can down the road is, we can't do that any longer.
yeah,
We can't afford that now at this point.
yeah.
So,
So I loved what you were saying about the issues that pertain particularly to democracy, because I saw Harry Enton's numbers from yesterday, I think it was. The issue of democracy was like 8th or something in 2024. That was on people's minds when they were voting, and now it's number 2. It's at 19%, and the economy is at like 53, and even immigration's below that. Everything's below that now. So I know that's a big item on your list, but you've got a lot of like Georgia specific issues, protecting workers, and what's the one thing that keeps you up at night? Like what's the one thing that your elected attorney general, what's the thing that you can't wait to tackle?
Well, I've said on day one that we are going to create a voting rights division within the Department of Law.
I love that.
And, the Supreme Court decision just necessitates it. We often think about it and it's reported in the news. We understand the impact at the congressional level when we talk about redrawing the districts and the composition of Congress, what that means for Trump trying to hold on to power in Congress in 2026. But one of the things that's less reported and so as important, if not more important in some cases, is that this decision impacts government at every level. So, it's your local government, it's your county commission, your city council, your school boards. I mean, all of these are now open to have the districts redrawn and participation fundamentally changed in harmful ways. And so that voting rights division, I think, is a necessary watchdog so that people know that you just can't do anything and expect it to escape scrutiny. And we also, need to make sure that we're preparing the case to litigate and that we actually litigate cases. And we've got to make courts say that what they're doing, up or down, it's okay or it's not okay. They don't get a free pass.
Yes. It's not just calling balls and strikes anymore,
right?
As far as I'm concerned,
actual accountability.
These are things that have very serious consequences, and take away people's freedoms. So.
Look at what's going on in Tennessee right now, which is, just insane. But
how quickly it happened.
Anybody who lives in the South understands exactly what is happening there.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just absurd to pretend that it's something other than it is.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts, honestly, because as somebody who like is trying to frame everything, right? I just keep thinking, what is the way that I need to explain this to where it's undeniable? Like, what are the words that I need to put to this to where like somebody can't come back at me in a debate on Newsmax and say, well, actually what they're doing now is racist. What they're doing now because they're pretending like Black people are different from white people. I'm like, oh, and I usually end up throwing out the Ginsburg quote because that's helpful. If y'all don't know, she said getting rid of the Voting Rights Act, getting rid of Section 2 is like throwing out your umbrella during a rainstorm because you're inside not getting wet. Like it's the same thing. But speaking of decisions, we obviously have the civil aspect of what you'd be working on. And full disclosure, my husband and Bob have worked in different capacities together, but we're all just civil attorneys here in Georgia and in Atlanta. And I've not worked on the criminal side. So that is something that you will definitely be working on. And there's lots of problems that we face in Georgia, specifically, like, for example, human trafficking because of our airport, drugs, major issues like that. How would you tackle that in a way that would be different from, let's say, Chris Carr or somebody else who might be running against you?
Yeah, well, I think that the important thing is to make sure that we're protecting Georgians. That's the job of the Attorney General. And when it comes to the criminal side and aspect of the Attorney General's office, even though that's a smaller section of what the Attorney General does overall, because the Attorney General is the chief legal officer for the state of Georgia and is the head of the Department of Law, from everything as mundane as state contracts to advising state agencies to representing the state in court. So I think that one of the things that you would see fundamentally is a philosophical shift in what it means to protect Georgians with the office of the Attorney General. So we would continue, we will obviously continue the work on things like human trafficking and the gang unit, and in pursuing people for cyber crimes. But we're going to use the office. We intend to partner with local district attorneys' offices and local law enforcement to help them address the public safety needs in their community. But the philosophical shift is that there are a lot of things that the Attorney General's office can do to protect Georgians that go beyond the issue of physical security. And that is really tapping into the consumer protection responsibilities and powers that the Attorney General has.
That's awesome. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's things like frauds, scams, fees, where Georgians are literally having their pockets picked, and the Attorney General has statutory powers to, under the Fair Business Practices Act and other statutes, to actually take an affirmative role in policing that and protecting Georgians. And we intend to be very aggressive in that aspect because, the one thing that I see in my law office every day is that there is no end to the way that people are trying to rip off Georgians. From big corporations to just outright people trying to cheat people out of their money.
Yeah.
But what people lack is really the power, the purchasing power to fight back and retain a lawyer. So much of that just goes unpoliced, and people get ripped off, and they're without remedy. And the Attorney General ought to be the people's lawyer. It has the power to make a difference, and we intend to use the office in that way.
Are you talking about like consumer? Are you talking about like Consumer Protection Bureau? Are you talking about like credit cards? Are you talking about like what issue in particular is the one that's really getting you right now?
Well, the consumer protection piece is one that I think is underutilized for sure. We did a number of years ago. We had a case that we handled in my office where there's a fee. This is pretty. There's no reason you would know this unless you'd ever gotten ripped off by it. But there's a cap on what a notary can actually charge you to notarize a document. It's like $2 or maybe $4. But we saw where a company was literally charging people $350 in connection with a loan to notarize a document.
Oh,
And
wow.
they were recovering that money.
Yeah.
And so it's just an example of what happens to Georgians. And, that's an area where the Attorney General's office ought to be involved and ought to be stepping in, because, who can afford to have their pocket picked in this economy?
Yeah, and I think Mom Donnie's been really successful with getting things like back pay, or just going over and auditing where there has been fraud. Like, the Republicans want to accuse the Democrats of fraud constantly, and it's like, yeah, but you guys are doing fake audits on your own stuff. What are you talking about?
So that,
Right.
You guys both, you cross over into my wheelhouse. And Bob, what you said, kind of really, really hits home with me, because as a former government official, I worked in compliance. So a big portion of my job was combating fraud, waste, and abuse, saving taxpayer dollars, and actually recouping some of those taxpayer dollars from contractors and putting it back into the Treasury to go back to the American people. And I know you've mentioned, holding the powerful people to account. So what does that actually look like in practice? Can you give us some examples of how you'd use the AG's office to, go after bad actors?
Yeah, well, there are a couple. We've talked about what happens in cases where Georgians are getting ripped off in some way, and that means literally building the cases and taking those companies or bad actors to court. Another example is like corporate polluters, where they're coming in and they're violating the standards that are set to protect our water and our air. And an attorney general ought to be in a position to help police that. And then the biggest example of that, I think, in terms of holding people accountable is, you've got to hold the federal government accountable when it looks to overreach and exceed its constitutional parameters and looks to violate the constitutional rights of Georgians. And so you have
a lot of that going on lately.
Yeah.
A lot of that going on, right? I mean,
Yeah.
think of the Fulton County, what happened in Fulton County and what's going on with the seizure of the ballots. The Attorney General, there's something about the gravitas of the office, right? To go in and say that I represent the people of the state of Georgia, and the federal government is attacking the voting rights and exceeding the constitutional role that is appropriated for the federal government in state elections. I mean, it's unprecedented, and a grade school child could tell you that they're not supposed to get involved in the conduct of state elections.
Elections are at the state level.
But here we are. And is this argument being made, in a forceful
on our
way
behalf?
the state?
No, it's not.
And that's a really great reason to get into a race like this, because you're saying, well, I'll do it. Like I'm sitting here and I care very deeply about this. And just like you said, like for a grade school child, even, I think that image of those officers wheeling out the ballots from Fulton County speaks volumes. Like if you had an image like that as a meme with your face on it, that's just like, where were you? Like, where were you? No one was standing there, because I can guarantee that if somebody would have called me and I would have positioned to do something, I would have been standing right there, kind of thing, Yeah,
I mean, we should have been in court that afternoon before the trucks had time to leave Union City.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's switch gears just a little bit, Bob, and we're going to get back to elections, because that's really the most important thing going on right now. But I want to give people a chance to really get to know who Bob Trammell is and what he's going to do as an AG. So let's talk about protecting Georgians' wallets a little bit. You already have, but I've heard you mention things about fraud and crypto scams that are targeting seniors. So what's your first move as AG to crack down on that?
Yeah, well, we have to build some cases and take these perpetrators into court. The worry that I have about vulnerable populations like our seniors, that it's so easy to access information. So a lot of these scams are targeted towards seniors because the publicly available information about people's numbers and how old they are is so easy to access.
Mhm.
But the technological capacity, with the increased AI, these schemes are going to get increasingly sophisticated. So now, you get a text message that says you're going to lose. Actually, my mother-in-law just yesterday, I was with them, and she showed me a text that she just got on her phone that says she was going to lose her driver's license because she hadn't paid a ticket.
Yeah,
It's totally a scam, right?
it's one of the problems.
So these are just going to get more and more and more sophisticated, and we have to have an office, and we're going to have to, to be candid about it, we're going to have to ask for some appropriations from the General Assembly to make sure that the office has the resources to investigate and bring these and keep up with that technological pace.
I've seen how sophisticated these scams are. I mean, because they have call centers, and you're talking with people, and it sounds like an American, and the next thing you know, your mother or grandmother, they're at Kroger or Publix dumping in tens of thousands of dollars from their savings accounts into a machine that converts it to crypto to pay for something. I mean, that's a real thing. That actually happens. So it's
so scary. And y'all both
insane.
have more experience than I do working in legislatures. But from what I saw, I was a speechwriter for the state Senate for the Democratic caucus. From what I saw there, pretty much the only thing that people could agree on, like on both sides of the aisle, was elder care. That was the only thing. You would think they would agree on kid stuff. They didn't. It was just helping old people. So when you're talking about getting appropriations for something like that, it sounds like it's like, okay, well, maybe we can all get behind making sure that old people don't get scammed. Wouldn't that be nice? Like
It
something
should
that we
be
can finally just agree on. And just quickly going back to what you said before about, like I would have been in court that afternoon. I just want to say that a big part of doing a job like this is knowing how to do it, is knowing what the rules are and how to navigate them. And somebody who's as qualified as you and as good of a lawyer as you is going to be able to use the rules effectively and not just stand there and not be ineffective. Because you can have somebody who's well-intentioned and who has good judgment. But that doesn't mean that this is a job where you have to know the rules and you have to know how to mix them up and play them. And that's why I think it's a great role for you in particular, because you know what you're doing. You would be able to figure out how to get in court that afternoon, because somebody else might be able to say, we're going to do everything we can. It's like, okay, I believe you that you want to, but there's a difference in that and actually getting something done. So just wanted to say that for sure. But sorry, side note, but going back to talking about AI and crypto and all of that. So there's the fraud aspect, but then there's also something that the legislature's been working on a lot, which is deep fakes and harassment and things like that. How would you balance like free speech and privacy concerns with the concerns that people are having for their safety?
Yeah, well, the one thing that I think that the role is to become a shield for Georgians, and I actually don't think that. So we're not looking to police the exercise of free speech. What we are looking to do is to bring cases to protect when people are targeted and they are using technology to harass or victimize. And I think that that's an important difference about when the action is taken. So we're sensitive to the First Amendment concern, but we also are not going to allow that to stand by while people are harmed.
Yeah.
And so we intend to take the actions that we can to make sure that we're protecting Georgians from a technology that there's is the Constitution itself doesn't contemplate the
Right.
Artificial intelligence or deep fake. If you so there obviously are going to be some novel issues that come up, right, that we haven't encountered and that courts will have to give some parameters to. But we're not going to let criminals hide behind free speech.
Yeah, that's very comforting, and it's clear that the current presidential administration is on the opposite side of that fight. So another issue that Georgians are concerned about with prosecutions in general is reproductive rights. I don't know what your personal beliefs are on that issue, but as Attorney General, how would you deal with the issue of reproductive rights and how contentious it is here in Georgia, and the issue that people are afraid of prosecutions for doctors or for women?
Well, first, in terms of my personal beliefs, I believe that a woman has a right to choose. Full stop. The law in Georgia is an abomination, and it's something that was actually the product of the legislature and the Republican governor while I was serving in the General Assembly, and it was the darkest day of my service in the General Assembly, the day that bill passed in the House. So, in terms of what we'll do as Attorney General, a firm commitment that my office will not prosecute women and not prosecute doctors under that abomination of a law.
Yeah.
Full stop. I mean, it's the ultimate remedy is that we need to elect a Democratic legislature to overturn that law and restore the reproductive rights and freedom of women in Georgia. But we will not be looking and we will not prosecute women or doctors under that law. And any opportunity we have to try to chip away at that, we'll certainly be interested in looking and taking those opportunities to do it. And I want to just say one other thing, since about this law and about its interaction with the Supreme Court of the United States. There was not a majority in the state house in favor of that law as a policy for Georgia.
Really?
There was not. What there were
push it through anyway.
The number of there were a significant, a number of Republicans. It narrowly passed the House. I mean, just barely. And there were a significant number of Republicans with whom I spoke, in the aftermath of that vote, who took the approach and attitude, the courts will never let it stand.
Mm.
Yeah.
And, that was how they came to justify a vote that they knew was deeply wrong and would be deeply, deeply harmful to women in Georgia. But we all know what happened. The Supreme Court, subsequently completely changed the law and just threw out stare decisis. And
all the talk about precedent and stare decisis,
right? Didn't care.
All of those Trump appointees talked about in committee with those senators saying that they believed, in settled law. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, every one of them voted to overturn Roe. And every one of them voted to gut Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
But the big takeaway from that is, this law came about in a context where it wasn't even a real context, because it wasn't as if they were saying create a policy for Georgia. They're passing this law that a number of them never believed would ever become the actual law of the land.
I can't tell you how many times I saw a terrible bill come out of legal counsel's office at the legislature, and everyone was like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, I don't even understand. This wasn't even researched properly. It doesn't, and they'll be like, well, whatever, the courts won't uphold it anyways. And it's like, okay, well, it's going to take 2 years to make it go away once you guys have already passed it. Minimum, it's going to take 2 years for them to look at it. So all the people who are going to encounter this problem over the next 2 years, you just don't care about. Like, that just didn't bother you. And I saw as like a peon in all of this every day, exactly what you're describing. And people, it just flew by.
And the attorney general has a role in this. It's important that the attorney general say, look, this is not constitutional. Because if you just take this attitude that you're just going to let it ride,
Right.
and let it roll, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Case in point. Bob, I'm a guy who, I come from a law enforcement family. Granddaddy was a sheriff and a farmer. He's the reason I wear black cowboy hats everywhere I go. Uncles were police captains and sheriff deputies. If you win, what is your relationship with law enforcement going to be like? And, how do you build strong relationships and accountable partnerships with our law enforcement officials? You've talked about this before. I kind of want to get your take and let the audience understand what you would do as far as building relationships with our law enforcement officials and having accountable partnerships there.
Yeah, well, look, you build relationships with law enforcement partners the same way you build other relationships. You reach out and you offer help and assistance, and you are accessible and available, to them. And I think the relevant question in building these relationships is, how has the office worked well in the past and been a helpful resource? How has it, been a little less helpful? Yeah. And what can we do? Is there anything you need? How can we help? And that's the approach that we intend to take with our local law enforcement partners, and in trying to look for ways that we can work together and ways that we can assist. And generally that makes for, if you're offering a help and assistance and you're open and accessible, that generally makes strong partnerships.
I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's circle back and talk again about holding the powerful accountable. If you win, the attorney general, you'd have a significant amount of power yourself. How would you make sure that power is not abused? And, how would Georgians know that you're being held to account as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. And ultimately for any office that someone holds, I think the measure is, who are you helping with the authority that you have, and are you using the powers and tools of the office to help Georgians? And so, for us, the accountability thing is, when I take on a case at my law office, because I'm in a small town, and it's in a community, if the job that we do in terms of accountability, I run into at the post office or the grocery store. I mean, it's right there, right? There is a personal level of accountability for the way that we help and assist people and the outcomes of those cases. And we want to bring that same level of personal accountability to the role of attorney general, where Georgians know that how the attorney general is working on their behalf, and the outcome of what we're attempting to do on behalf of Georgians, that they know that. We want them to feel like that the attorney general is the people's lawyer and their lawyer. And so what it ultimately comes down to is delivering results. If we're able to deliver results, just like those trips I take to the post office and the grocery store in our small community, Georgians are going to know that, and those interactions are going to be positive, and that's the type of accountability that we're looking for. And when you practice in a small community, it is a level of accountability like none other.
Everybody knows everybody.
Right? If somebody thought that you had done something that was not to the highest level of professionalism, in delivering excellent legal results and in helping people in their lives, your business would not be around for very long in a small town community like that.
I mean, and that's the kind of accountability I think we're missing right now at the federal level. You've got a president and an administration who are using the levers of power like they've never been used before, and we keep throwing this word unprecedented out so much in the last decade that we've said it an unprecedented amount of times. It's just,
one thing about
the Supreme Court, though, Bob, when I was a government official, we had ethics standards that we had to meet to. We had to do financial disclosures every year. When you reach a certain level in government and you hold warrants, you got to do that. You have to adhere to the ethics standards. You have to sign, saying, yeah, I will do this. And if not, I understand what could happen, so, but we have a Supreme Court that, I guess they made up a little ethics thing that nobody can hold them account to. It's their own little thing, but you see.
Let me put that in like very plain, terms and personal experience, because when I was right out of law school, I was a law clerk for 2 years. So I clerked for a district court judge in Atlanta, and the law clerks were subject to the judicial canons of ethics, right? So we couldn't participate in we couldn't go to a local party meeting or have a bumper sticker on our car or anything like that. Now, what does it say about a court where a law clerk at a straight out of law school is held to a higher standard than the justices on the Supreme Court of the United States? That's just totally messed up.
It's crazy. What does it say for a president, a commander in chief, who's not held to the same standard as a GS 13 or 14 government official who, has to do financial disclosures, who can't violate, any of the things, as far as I couldn't even go to a contractor brunch, that I oversaw, go to one of their brunches without paying fair market value. But the president of the United States can advertise stuff, take gifts, do all kinds of things to make money off of the office. I mean, same thing with the Supreme Court. So it's nice.
Yeah. I think what it says is that some people consider themselves above the law, and that the people who are in power allow them to get away with that.
And the Supreme Court apparently agrees.
Exactly. Yes. So quickly pivoting to something a little bit more fun and lighter. What is something that you would like to share with our audience here about you that they wouldn't get from an ad or a commercial? What's something that you wish people knew?
Well, I think that what people probably won't get from an ad or a commercial is that one of my greatest joys in life is being a dad, and that my children, 13, 11, and 8, are, they're the reason. When I was in the General Assembly, my children were obviously younger, but I looked at everything through the lens of a dad. Whether this makes sense, that's how I looked at it, and that's the way I view this role as Attorney General. I think one thing that people will understand about having a 13, 11, and 8-year-old is that my full-time, part-time job is being a driver to help them get to where they're going. But I mean, it's exciting to watch the world through their eyes, but it's also terrifying to watch the world that they're taking in. And I do worry about that. And it's again that animating force behind what I'm doing, because I think that we'll one day be in lots better hands when their generation is running the country and running the state.
I agree.
But we got to get there. We got to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we've got a lot of cleaning up to do before we hand it off to them, to the next generation.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
One of the fun things I will say about my recent campaign days is you never know, like whether the kids are like how much are they into it or how much are they absorbing
Yeah.
and whatnot. But we're obviously at a stretch of the campaign where we're having to go. We're frequently on the run, and there's a lot of travel. And so Saturday, I had been in. I had started the day in Kennesaw and then gone to Dallas, and I went home, and I was supposed to be in Macon that night for a really fun thing to introduce a band where a buddy is playing in that, and he said, "Well, why don't you just come introduce the band, say hello and meet some people?" And so as I was literally about to be 5 minutes out from leaving the door, my 8-year-old, my son said, "Hey, I want to go with you." And we were supposed to be in Athens the next morning. And so I said, "Well, I have to be in Athens the next morning, so we'll have to leave from there, and go there." And he went, and it was just
I love it.
it was just such a great time to have with him and to share that. And I can only imagine, what his what the memories that he'll take away from all that time about being on the road together, kind of in the campaign.
I was gonna say, you never know when you're planting that memory that's gonna stay with them. But that's so special.
It was.
That's a special moment.
It was. The highlight of the campaign for me.
I love that, and your love for your kids really shines through when you talk about it.
Yep. Bob, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
today. And before you go, why don't you tell everybody, on With All Due Respect, where they can go to find out more about you and how they can help out your campaign?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, you can learn more about the campaign and how to help the campaign at bobtrammell.com. That's BOBTRAMMELL.com. And we're obviously on the Wednesday before the election. So early voting ends Friday. Make a plan to vote. The primary election is Tuesday. At this point, we're 138 hours away, something like that. So if you want to help the campaign, just reach out and contact our site, and we certainly have a role for you, and we're just grateful for your engagement and participation in the primary process, and importantly in November in 2026, because it's never mattered more.
Oh, absolutely. It hasn't. And everybody, for full disclosure, Bob is an endorsed candidate from Hold the Line, which is our PAC here. We think Bob's great, and we need an attorney general like him. And again, as I always say, campaigns need money. So go out and donate whatever you can, people, whether it's $1, $5, $10, it all helps. And if you're here in Georgia and you want to help out in different ways, I'm sure Bob could use phone banking and, people to go out and do canvassing. So if you're here in Georgia, go check out Bob's website, volunteer if you can. I'm sure he would appreciate it. Right, Bob?
I would say it's not just about the fact that, he's an authentic candidate with good judgment. I think he's also extraordinarily qualified. Extraordinarily qualified, which is a very refreshing quality in a political candidate. So yes, to have somebody who knows what the right thing is to do and to actually know how to do it is
knows how to implement
it. Shouldn't be extraordinary, but it is. So it is necessary, and we are grateful. So thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
To get the ground running and making it happen for Georgians.
Thank y'all so much. The last thing I want to say is just that, Georgia's, there are a lot of things on the ballot. And there are a lot of people literally in the process of making up their minds on these races. So just like as a lawyer, word of mouth is the most important validation that you could ever have. And that's true as a candidate as well. So one of the most impactful things you can do is just to share with friends in this last 6 days what you're, that you saw someone and who you're supporting, because it makes all the difference.
Yeah, those personal conversations, they do mean a lot, and they help a lot. I mean, I got a lot of votes that I didn't think I was going to get, when I was running for Congress, just from Republicans talking to other Republicans.
Yeah.
when I was running against Marjorie Taylor Greene. So, we got a pretty good share. So people, go out, help Bob if you can. Also volunteer if you can. If you're here in Georgia, I'm sure he'd appreciate it. Bob, thanks again for joining
Thank
us.
you so
Thank y'all so
much.
much. Great to
Good
be
luck.
with you.
Good luck
Take
in the
care.
final stretch of this primary, my friend.
Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Another great
Smart dude.
candidate. Another great candidate.
Super smart, super qualified.
Yeah.
And I really was just thinking about like how he said we would have been in court that afternoon, and how I don't know what the process for that would be. Like it's not like something that I would have studied the process for in school. But he's the kind of person who would have figured it out. And like there's a few different kinds of people, right? There's one who would say, we're going to do everything we can and then do nothing about it. There's another person who couldn't figure it out, and there's the person who actually can. So that's you forget how important being qualified to deal with the law, like how important that actually is.
Bob's got a good name here in Georgia, and integrity is a big thing with me, and being principled, and those are all, those core values. Those are the things that I really, really key in on when it comes to, candidates and people who are running to represent us. So,
of course,
I think he's all of the above. So,
Oh yeah, definitely. So you want to cover some news?
Let's talk about a little bit of news, Maddie.
Talk about the news.
It's a lot, at the top of the, of course, Trump. He's in China right now, and but that's not even the big thing. Trump admits the obvious and gives Democrats yet another midterm gift by saying, "I don't think that Americans or think about Americans' financial situations."
I saw that. I was like,
saying the quiet part out loud again. I don't think about
I don't think about what you have to deal with when I'm making decisions.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care that your gas prices are way
No, he
up.
don't care.
He doesn't care that your grocery prices are way up. He doesn't care that your energy costs are way up. He doesn't care that people are being priced out of homes and young buyers can't get. He never has.
Terrible.
That's the newsflash,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we try to bring up all the time in these debates, like, in response to, but the stock market or the Dow or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, some people have their 401ks that are benefiting from that, but the vast majority of people are not looking at the stock market to figure out how easy their lives are. And those also weren't the people who delivered the election for you, Mr. Trump. Like those were not the people that you need to keep in your pocket. These are like, you're appealing to the wrong crowd.
Exact wrong crowd. He's playing to the billionaires and those guys who are making money in the stock market. But those aren't everyday people. The vast majority of his voters are, lower income to middle class income people who are really being affected right now about these.
It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And that's one of the reasons I'm obsessed with all of this, is because I know that he stands for something for them. Like his voters who are lower income see him. The thing that I hear the most from people when I ask them, why did you vote for Trump? Or like, what do you like about Trump? Is that he loves this country. That I would say that is the number one thing that I've heard from people. And so one of the things that I try to tell Democrats when they're running in spaces like Georgia, when they're running in more red spaces, is remind people how much you love America, because I liken it to a kid. It's like if a kid keeps messing up and you keep telling them how much they're messing up, they're going to forget that you love them still. Like you have to you do the compliment sandwich, right? Because there's some people who think that that you've criticized it so much that you don't still love it. And because that's what it says to me, because it's impliedly asking somebody, when you say, why do you love Trump? It's also, why did you not vote for the other person?
And that's one of those things I've heard out on the campaign. I heard while I was out on the campaign trail as well. And people would say things about Trump like that, and like Marjorie Taylor Greene like that. And I would, my response would be, Do you think I don't love the country? Is that what you think? Are you questioning,
Yes.
my loyalty and fidelity to this country?
Right, and you're
I'll
like
let them
and
know.
because they assume that you're not a
Yeah.
veteran, like somebody who didn't,
You know, I
was willing to sacrifice his
I
life for
raised my
the
right hand
country.
and signed a blank check,
Right.
up to it to include my life if necessary, giving my
Right.
life for the country. So, I love this country more than anything, which, as James Baldwin said, which is why I insist on the right to criticize her. I
Mhm.
insist on it. Yeah.
I just
Criticism
I
doesn't mean you
just
don't love something. You know,
yeah.
you see things wrong, having empathy and wanting other people or equality, even, but wanting other people to have everything, you know, that maybe you couldn't have. You know,
Yeah.
I
And
didn't finish
I'll just
college,
pitch.
but I want my kids to be able to do it should they decide that's the route they want to go, or go into the military should they decide
Of
that's the route they
course.
want to go. And I definitely want them to have a home. So,
Of course.
and right now our country's not
So
in a place to guarantee those things. It says, pursuit of
it's not
happiness, but the generation before me, my generation, we were able to work and get these things. I
right.
don't see it for my kids right now. My daughters have less rights than their mother and grandmother.
Yeah, isn't that sad? It's so
Yeah.
sad. And I know that people like my brother, he's reluctant to ever have kids because he's like, I don't know how good this world is to
And
continue
there's a
it.
lot of
You
people
know,
saying that lately.
I
A lot of
know.
people.
And it used to be about climate
Yeah.
change too. It used to be about, and it's so ironic because we hear constantly from the right now, like we need to have more babies. And it's like, okay, but like 10 years ago, when we were talking about the limited resources, what we were saying is that there are too many people on the planet and that the resources are limited. And now you guys are saying have more babies and you're taking all of the water for your stupid data centers.
Right.
Like,
Look at-
oh, I have a Georgia thing too we can
Oh
talk
yeah, yeah.
about
The
that.
data centers right now, people losing their homes because of data centers. And there's a big thing going viral
So
right now in Georgia about that.
So quick thing, and I think that this might be a really fun conversation for us in particular. So I was at my mother-in-law's house and she lives in Carrollton.
Close to
And
me.
she
So,
yeah, and she lives on a farm. And she had a cookbook there. I have it upstairs. Because she let me borrow it. It's called like the Blue Willow Inn cookbook or something like that. And I was reading the little passages in there, and it's a restaurant that's in Social Circle, Georgia. And they were talking about how Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind, lived across the street from there, and she would come in for dinner. And they all knew that like her husband cheated on her, and that that was one of the dramas that ended up in the movie Gone with the that ended up in it. And so like it was all the gossip from her, and it's so interesting because this is an element of white people culture that also billionaires don't care about,
I don't.
right? I was thinking about it
Oh,
way because I was thinking of it like, well,
I
you
love
can
that you brought that
sit,
up. That you made
right?
that
Because
distinction.
I was like, because it's something that you would think that they would leave alone. You know what I mean? Like this is the one thing that they wouldn't
No,
touch, and they don't
they don't.
care. Like putting a data center in the space where Margaret Mitchell wrote Gone with the Wind, because it's like all like it's called Social Circle because there's like a myth about somebody walking across like the city line and there was like a whole half moon of people drinking and they invited him in to talk, and like it's got a vibe apparently, and this restaurant is a vibe, and billionaires
Okay.
don't care. They don't care. Like if white folks thought that these billionaires were going to protect them and their culture, they don't care about you.
No,
They don't. And the president is selling you out, you know?
he has been from day one, since before day one,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
that's why, it saddens me to see guys like Tim Cook and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos all bend the knee and kiss the ring
Gross.
emphatically. And I used to love Tim Cook because he was an Auburn guy, or is an Auburn guy, and now not so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's made me
gross.
rethink
And
my
I look
Apple
at
products. So
Yeah, right. I look at those cultural things in kind of a weird way because I'm white presenting, but like when I would go to country clubs because I went to a fancy school, like when I was a kid, my dad was very clear. Like, just so you know, your grandparents would not have been allowed to go here. Like just so you know, you're like it's very likely that the old people that are here are gonna whisper about you when you
Yeah.
leave. And I was like, "Oh, okay. That's a weird thing." And whether or not that was true because
No, it's
he
true because
did
that's
like
Georgia. So
right. So I grew up in Indiana, and like whether or not that was true, it was true for him when he moved there in the 80s.
yeah,
Like he dealt with it all the time. And so for me, I can kind of be an outside looking
mm,
in on issues of culture when it comes to
right.
that because I don't have an attachment to it. So it still isn't something that like, you know, it wasn't my ancestors personally, right, that dealt with this. And so I don't have an attachment to it in that way. I have attachment to it in terms of humanity that I care,
Yeah.
but
And that reminds me of like when my maternal grandmother was alive, and she would talk to me about that whole time coming up in Jim Crow before the civil rights movement, and I'd listen to some of those stories, and I'm like, yeah, that was a long time ago. This
yeah,
is a very young version of me. Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's a long time
yeah,
ago. We've moved past that.
yes.
That was kind of playing in the back of my head as she was telling us. Of course, I didn't interrupt because you just didn't do that.
Because it's
But
fun. Yeah, of course.
long time ago, never thought we'd be dealing with the exact same kind of things that they dealt with back in Jim Crow.
Unbelievable. Like I remember
Our
being a
civil
kid
rights moment right now. We're dealing with it.
when I was in sixth grade. You had to pick a great American, and that was like the big deal at school, right? Like you got to sixth grade and you pick your great American. Mine was Rosa Parks. I always knew it was going to be Rosa Parks. And I remember my parents saying like, "Well, do you want to do civil rights when you grow up? Is that what you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, we won't need to." Like I remember saying
Just
we won't need
yeah.
to. It won't be a problem. And it's so sad.
And I bet we're
So
not the
sad.
only people that thought that way.
Yeah. I was like, "It won't be an issue. It'll be fine."
I always thought that Roe would never be overturned. I mean, maybe that was
Yeah.
a bit naive, but I thought, hey, all of these guys have talked about, as we talked about with Bob, precedent and stare decisis and this, that, and the other. And I always thought that, or I've thought recently that we're going to make civil rights stronger. We're going to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
Mhm.
We're going in the opposite direction of what I thought we were going.
It
And
really
now it's
hurts.
time for that pendulum to start swinging back, but it's not going to swing back on its own this time, folks. It's
No.
going to take, well, I guess it didn't last time. It's going to take us and take all of us waking up and standing up and remember that the power lies with us, the people, and we can do it.
And speaking of that, um, in terms of the power that's sort of powers that be that are holding on to it so
Mhm.
tightly, just
Doing everything
plugging
they
my next
can to
article.
hold power.
Yes, my next article is coming out
Yes.
tomorrow. So the first it's on Maddie's Hot Take, but it's also on Madeline Summerville. And with all due respect, um, so the first article covered Peter Thiel and Epstein, right? So basically, it's drawing the thread between all of the crazy shit that's going on in the
Mhm.
world, and how it's all connected. And so the first one was about Peter Thiel and Epstein and how ultimately their
Great
connection
article, guys.
is
If you
about
haven't read it, go read it. It's good.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
It's about the military industrial
Yes.
complex. Because people forget that that's what Peter Thiel
Yes.
does is that he is a war profiteer and that basically what Epstein did was he facilitated contracts between people who were selling arms and people who were buying them, like countries, like people who were within different countries that wanted to buy things. He was
A
like
mini Lord of War, basically.
yes, that's what he was. And so there'll be a subsequent article that comes out where it's called War, What Is It Good For? Ask the Board of Peace. That's on Trump's Board of Peace is actually a war profiteer.
Yeah.
And so my argument is essentially that now that Epstein's gone, they needed and Trump's thing is like, let's just do it in public anyways, right? I mean, Jared Kushner, who's the one who's going to profit off of all of the rebuilds, is the one who's negotiating these deals, which is insane, right?
It is insane.
It's insane, but that's sort of the point of it. So then the next article, and it relates directly to reproductive rights, actually, is about the Catholic Church, and it's so the first article is going to be, and that's the one that comes out tomorrow, is going to be the one that explains why Trump is attacking the Pope, and then the one after that I've already written like 90% of is about why he posted the Trump AI Jesus picture, because all of that seems like it's totally out of left field and crazy. But when you understand the history of the conflict between the modern right-wing America and the Vatican, and the people who are currently and the people who were in Trump 47 and Trump 49, it all makes sense. And then you're like, wait a second, why is it the news reminding us of this stuff? Like, why aren't they? And because this is the context, this is the whole point of the flood the zone, Steve Bannon flood the zone strategy, is that you lose all the context that you need in order to make sense of what's going on. So that when Trump posts a Trump Jesus AI photo, it seems like it's just him, and I know some people are like, he's not playing 3D chess. He's not a super genius. He doesn't have to be. There are people around him who are telling him what to do, right? Because there's so much corporate money that's riding on this presidency, so much that there's no way that they're going to leave that to chance. They're not going to leave the future of their companies to chance. So just wanted to plug the article really fast that's coming out. And like I said, it's drawing that thread, and it'll help you understand the whole relationship between the American right and the Vatican, and the relationship between Pope Leo and Trump specifically.
Yeah, which is not a very good relationship, and I'm on Pope Leo's side.
Oh yeah, Team Pope Leo all day.
I wish he'd just say, bring out his Chicago side and tell Trump to go fuck himself. But,
me too. Team Pope Leo all the way. Team Pope Leo.
Hey, what do I know? Let's kind of stay on that voting rights acting. But yeah, people go check out Maddie's article tomorrow.
Thank you.
Tomorrow. Be on her Substack, as well as With All Due Respect, Maddie's Hot Takes, Madeline Summerville, With All Due Respect. Go check it out. She puts a lot of work into these, and I love them. So
years of research.
But yeah, following the Supreme Court's decision to gut Voting Rights Act, Tennessee couldn't wait. They just couldn't wait.
Is that not proof in and of itself, the fact that they couldn't wait? Like, can we, if I were arguing that case,
was it like the next day, or was it like 2 or 3 days after?
It was the next day.
It was the next day. Crazy.
How is that not proof?
It should have been. I mean, it's right there in their faces. Like, oh, if I was a Supreme Court justice who, if they had any kind of conscience whatsoever,
right?
Say, oh, well, maybe we were wrong on this. Since these guys are clamoring to change maps and Alabama's maps, and now you got the Supreme Court in Virginia, who killed those maps. So red states, the maps are okay that they're doing. Blue states, not so much. What the actual F?
Every single Democrat voted for a bill that came forward last year to get rid of redistricting, and every single Republican voted against it.
They voted against it. And I brought up Virginia, but the people in Virginia actually voted on a referendum.
Right.
Why does
that matter?
In other states, so, but I did before, even though I wanted this to happen, I did say that there was going to be something that the Supreme Court did to make this unfair. Process unfair. And I just had that feeling, and I said it a while back. And
you did.
It's coming true.
You did.
Maybe I should stop saying stuff. So
you're willing it into existence.
It's just crazy, And let's see, Missouri's top court, however, chose to uphold the state's Republican-friendly map, but Trump's gerrymandering push is facing more resistance in South Carolina, where a number of Republican state senators voted with the Democrats to block a proposed map. Couple of bright spots, but this is going to be ugly, people, in November. So that's why I keep talking about it. We've got to show up in numbers that are so big. There's no time for sitting on the sideline anymore. There's no time to say, well, my vote doesn't count anymore. If your vote didn't count why are we going through all of these exercises?
Yeah,
The
then
vote
they
didn't
they
matter.
would be leaving us alone, and they're not. Like, they're
Yeah.
constantly trying to shove a narrative down our throats because your vote matters,
Yeah.
you know?
Sigh. Love sigh.
Sigh.
You know. Meanwhile, Trump's in China right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he was welcomed, and I think, you know, yeah, it's a high stakes visit, but I think Trump's about to give away everything. I think Xi Jinping is about to run circles around this guy. I don't think he's a great negotiator. I don't think he ever has been. Um, you know,
So, China is an ally of Russia,
yes,
and
yeah,
Russia is an
they're
ally
an
of
ally of Iran's too.
exactly. That's where I was going with that too. And
Yeah,
Iran is an ally of Russia. So that's that chain that's operating over there.
yeah,
And also my series will explain that too, because there's a lot of lying that's going on in terms of what Trump's actual goals are.
yeah,
But my belief is that Trump's approval ratings are in the garbage right now.
yeah.
They're like
Circle
terrible.
in the drain right now,
Right?
literally.
They're terrible, and he knows it too.
Yeah,
Because even if he has advisors that hides stuff from him, he can always look at his phone. That
yeah,
man has his phone in his hand all day long. He can look at the CNN poll that I saw today.
yeah.
So my thought is that the only way that Trump was going to be cool with going along with all of this, because I don't think he cares really about anything. I don't think he's an ideologue. I don't think he has,
Mhm.
like, a specific goal in mind other than making like idols of himself. I think he agreed to go along with other people's plans if
As long
they
as it helps enrich him and his family.
exactly, and if it would help him take home the prize for ending the war in Ukraine. I think that there's some deal that's worked in with that. I don't know if that's what he's going to deal with in China. I know that they've been bringing up that, like, the war in Ukraine again recently because Russia isn't doing as well. But all of this timing is getting too close to the midterms for me to even like a little bit believe otherwise. And I've been saying this for a year. I've been saying this for a year now, that the
Yeah.
only way that he was going to be cool with all of this, all of the backlash that he's getting because he's lost all the independence, is if the powers that be promise him that he's going to get the war in Ukraine. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think China's going to do whatever. I mean, okay, people, this meeting in China is supposed to be about framing our, you know, trade relationships with China. So, but I
But you
think
can't
Trump's
be an
gonna,
ally to Japan and China.
yeah.
Like, we just made a great friend in Japan. How are you going to be friends with China also?
But again, I think he's going to give away the bag. I don't see him negotiating anything good for us.
No.
You know, if it doesn't help him directly, you know, and I know a lot of that's supposed to happen diplomatically behind the scenes, and you know, most of this is just photo ops and whatever. But Trump always finds a way to blow it.
He does.
He
He'll
does.
taco this and taco that.
It's amazing. He always finds a way to blow it. So
It's amazing.
stay tuned for what comes out of this forum in China, or this meeting,
Yes.
or state visit in China, if you will. All right. Let's talk about our financial woes right now.
Okay. Let's do it.
There's probably going to be more of them with Iran going on and Trump and China, but you know, Americans are facing sky high gasoline prices, grocery prices,
Mhm.
and
Inflation is the highest it's been in 3.5 years or something, I think, which is like post-COVID.
extreme weather that's going to probably add to that. You know, and again, let's see what these trade policies with China come out with. But you know, Trump's he said he didn't care.
He did.
About any of that. He didn't care about people's financial situation.
Out of his mouth, he said those words.
Literally said that. You know, to
It's on
those
the camera.
voters, to those people who voted for him, you know, because he loves America, he does not
Right.
care. This isn't us saying it now, which we've
Right.
said all along, but this is him from his own mouth. I don't care about your financial situation. He only cares about his people.
Like, and I also don't know how people can defend that. Like, I
It's
would love to
unconvincing.
show that video to a MAGA
White
person.
supremacy makes people defend anything if they think it's going to continue that and hurt Black people in certain sense.
But how do we undo it, Marcus? There must be a way. Like, there's got to be something that gets into people's brains. Like, they're not, like, some of them are still good on the inside.
We've been trying to figure this out for 400 years. So
I'm still trying.
Yeah. So we've been trying to figure that out for 400 years. Once, we got to get people to see that we're all in this together. I see the only way, and I'm not one of those people who just wants to beat up on billionaires because they're billionaires. But if you got billions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars, you probably didn't do great getting it, and I've always told people, make your money. Great. That's what you're supposed to be trying to do. But pay your fair share.
Right.
If you've made $1 billion, you've probably done it using the roads. You've probably done it using the mail.
Exactly.
Using our infrastructure. Why not help pay for that?
And your people who work for you are dedicating their lives to your business and need to have all these things to live in order to show up at work. Yeah. I don't understand how the logic gets lost there.
Yeah. How does it get lost? And these $1 billion corporations pay less in tax than teachers. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And it doesn't, one of the things that really frustrates me is the narrative about regulations, where every single narrative that you've heard about a federal regulation, I'm talking about a state one, I'm talking about a federal regulation, is total bullshit, because that's just big corporations that don't want to have to take less money and instead spend that money making sure that they have equipment that doesn't pollute the air and the water. And
I'm a compliance guy who used to enforce those regulations. So, and I don't believe in regulations just for the sake of regulation.
Yeah.
But some of them are there for good reason.
Good reasons. Thank you.
Good reasons, and that's one of the things that people just don't seem to get.
Yeah.
And it's we should let these guys off the hook and hold them accountable. We talked a lot about accountability today.
We did. We definitely did.
That was my job, holding powerful people accountable and
that's
making sure they didn't waste your money, your taxpayer dollars.
Important job.
All right. Last topic today before we get out of here. Let's talk about these crazy guys, these drunk guys. And
these drunk guys.
Drunk administration. You got Boxwine Shapiro, Whiskey Pete, and the latest excessive drinker, Kash Patel. I'm trying to come up with a name for him.
I don't know. I just love Aziz on SNL.
I didn't see it yet, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
It was so funny. He was like, just because I get a Yeti and put 5 shots of gin in it and 5 lemon peels and call it a Cash-tini does not mean that I'm an alcoholic. And I rolled over dying. It was so funny.
Just gave it to me. Cash-tini. That's going to be his new nickname.
Cash-tini. Yep, there it is.
Boxwine Shapiro and Whiskey Pete. Why are there so many drunks in this administration? I just don't get it. All the best people, right? and they all go up on Capitol Hill and make a fool of themselves.
Yeah.
Whether they're talking about this stock markets at 50,000 or just arguing with members for the sake of arguing with members. What is going on with this administration?
What frustrates me is that Congress people, when they are questioning these folks, they either get caught up in the emotion of it or they're trying to make a show. Because if you were going to do it like a cross-examination for a lawyer was going to cross-examine this person, you could really narrow it down a lot more than they do. I thought about doing a video where I'm like, no, this is how they should have handled it. Because, if the person responds and says, well, the Dow is at 50,000, you can call that out. You can call out exactly what they're doing and get them to respond to it. You don't have to just ask them the same question over and over again. You can state the obvious. And once you put words to what everyone knows and what everyone can see, it gets a lot easier to make that argument,
Absolutely. And, not a lawyer, even though I had to do a lot of case study for my job, but I would approach it as a compliance official.
Of course. That's the logic way.
Ask questions just like a compliance official would ask questions. And point to regulation, reg, this, that, and the other, point right to it and say, okay, Do you understand that? Do you know that this is why? I'd approach it simply that way.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, it shows. And if you're lying, it shows. So the same way, like you said, approach it like a trial attorney.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing.
It's the same thing. I mean, legal and regulatory always go together.
It's all the
Yeah.
same. So, but yeah, these guys can't get up on, and yeah, a lot of those committee hearings are, for show to get viral moments, which it shouldn't be.
I
It shouldn't
know.
be, people.
Because you're not getting anywhere. Like the whole point is to hold them accountable, and you're just getting a viral moment for yourself. You're not helping the American people.
And it probably doesn't go down that way in the committee meetings that are held behind closed doors, but these ones that are televised, it's for show.
For show.
People get a viral moment and fundraise. So we understand that, but at the same time, it's sad because that means people don't get to see how the wheels of government actually function and what true accountability looks like.
Yeah.
They get a show and people get turned off by it.
Mm-hmm.
It is sickening. So, yeah. But their behavior is sickening as well, in this administration. I've never seen it this bad. I used to talk about the white hot rhetoric in my last campaign. It's gotten even worse since 2022.
It's gotten worse, that's for sure. It's gotten way worse, but we're going to keep fighting.
That's it. We got to keep fighting, guys. If you're here in Georgia, make sure you get out and vote. Early voting started already.
I haven't voted already yesterday.
I'm planning to go on Friday. That's the day I have set aside to go out and cast my ballot. Last day of early voting. Yeah, I kind of put it off. Usually I go the first day, but it's been busy last few weeks. So I did a lot of traveling and a lot going on, a lot of moving parts.
Well, we're gonna get all our ballots cast and do the whole democracy thing.
Hopefully we get some good candidates out of this out of this primary.
Fingers crossed.
We've got a hell of a fight coming into this general election.
We're ready.
Not just here in Georgia, but all over the country. So
yep, absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for today. I know we went way over time today, but
thank you for joining
us. Thank you. Check out our Substack. With all due respect, our newsletter's there. And thank you to all of our subscribers. We appreciate you. That's how we continue to do this thing. That's all we got today. Godspeed, everybody.